pretty hot race. Been a little bit, maybe just a little bit slow to respond to the controls on the SRTV room, but you should be getting started here shortly. Alright, so yeah, on Louder's side, we can kind of see him like just bouncing through the prologue section here. So what we call these short little jumps are bunny hops. What bunny hops are going to do, especially in later levels, is they'll allow us to kind of preserve our momentum from our previous movements. So basically, like with each of these short jumps, Louder is saving 1 or 2 frames, but when you're jumping 20 to 30 times as you are in this section, that's going to add up to a second, which is a pretty good. Oh, that sounded like a death there. And that's, that happens to the best of us. It happens to every single runner at some point in their Celeste speedrunning career that, you're just going for those extra 2 frames and then just plummet into the abyss before the crow can tell you that you're able to dash. But Louder gets a dash, and they are ready to start their race. Okay, so in the prologue, we were taught the basic mechanics, the jumping and the dashing and the climbing. In this one, and in this chapter, we're putting to use some mechanics that the game will teach you in later levels, specifically like these hyper dashes and these wall bounces that you can kind of see these runners go for. So wall bounces that you might be able to see on Louder's screen here. Basically, yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. You time a wall jump at the right moment, and you're able to get an extra little boost. And then the hyper dash, as we should be seeing on one of these screens at some point here. But yeah, hyper dash, which we're about to see, basically we just look against the ground and hit jump at just right moment, and we're able to cover more ground at greater speed. So the hyper dash is extremely useful, especially since if we time our jump just right, like Louder just did, we're able to retain an extra dash to cover even more ground and cross even larger gaps. Yeah, so the first level is just kind of like easing you into the basics. It's, it's a lot like the rest of the game. It's action-packed. You're kind of making these intense inputs from the word go, so both these runners dealing with it rather nicely. Yeah, Briguy executing what we call a spike jump. It's really more of like, the spikes are kind of programmed in this game to, like, there's kind of 2 parts of the spike. Like, there's the spike itself, and then there's the part of the spike that's the wall, so you kind of align yourself against that little bit of the floor there so that you're jumping off of the wall and not so that you're not hitting the spike. And yeah, both runners executing that very well out of chapter 1 in short order. Louder recovering from that prologue death rather nicely, and now we're into chapter 2, which again, it's kind of simple. We're just gonna be dashing all over the place, skipping intended puzzles like this one with our hyper dash. Like, the hyper dash really breaks the game in a way that the developers kind of sort of intended. Yeah, Celeste is a game that was like built around the idea of speedrunning. Like, the plot of the game is kind of like, the way that the game progresses, it kind of teaches you how to speedrun it, which is really interesting. And yeah, you can see that, like, this hyper dash mechanic that they put into the game, you go through these levels, and then once you play the game knowing these mechanics, it's really amazing just like how broken the levels can be. But yeah, so Louder going through these dream blocks here, which are another really fun mechanic. You just kind of shoot through these boxes at a speed equivalent to your dash, and it's kind of short-lived. Like, a lot of this chapter is kind of like built on exploration, kind of like going around. Oh, that was interesting from Louder, kind of getting caught up by Battleline, managed to dodge Battleline, who follows you around 3 seconds, mimicking your movements. Yeah, mimics your movements and is on a 3-second delay from you. So Louder and was able to avoid Battleline, but not the spikes. And as I'm kind of explaining what happened there, 12 other cool things happened for Louder. So that's one of the pitfalls of the game. Like, there's always something interesting happening on one of these screens. Like if we look at Briguy here for a second, gets a little dash jump. He's gonna hyper dash into this block, and he's gonna be, yep, you can kind of see that he timed what he was doing there to duck under the battle lines to get into that hole. Taking a dev-intended skip. This is like one of the cooler sections to play casually because like it's long, it's difficult, and there's really fun movement. And then you just find out that there's this notch in the wall that the developers put in so that you could have this different kind of fun movement. Yeah, both runners get through the battle line section nicely, and now they're on different portions where there's nothing here that can really kill you. So the goal of this section here, like the awake section that Loudur in and Briguy is just now entering, is to kind of move as efficiently and as quickly as possible. Like you can definitely tell a more experienced runner from a newer runner, because a newer runner may be running into more of the walls and the corners, whereas like a more experienced runner is just like, constantly dashing, constantly moving forward, like retaining their speed. And yeah. So Loudur is out of Chapter 2, and we're pretty close together through the first 2 chapters, but that's kind of expected in a Celeste race. Chapter 3, which we're just now starting, is going to represent the first major point of divergence, because now the obstacles that we have to avoid are kind of directly in our path. And not only that, but a lot of dust bunnies, as we just saw Loudur navigate through, are moving. So Chapter 3 is both about knowing the cycles that these little dust bunnies are on and being able to move quickly through those cycles. Yeah, so as you can see, both these runners know the movement that the dust bunnies are giving them, and they're moving rather nicely through those cycles. One thing that we like to point out is that there's no RNG in this game, so the movements that they're going to be making are fairly predictable. There's really only 2 cycles that they're going to encounter with these dust bunnies. There's an entrance cycle where like the way that they move when you enter the room, and then there's a death cycle where if you take a death in the room, the same cycle starts about half a second earlier, so you kind of have to adjust your own movements to the new cycle in order to get through that quickly. So a lot of runners, especially when they're first starting, have to have like 2 different cycles memorized. And now Loudur is in another one of those rooms that like can't actually kill you but can still impede your progress a little bit if you're inexperienced. Yeah, gets through it rather nicely, dashing in the right spots while bouncing in the right spots, gets through with relative ease. Now we're in the huge mess section. So as you can see on Briguy's screen, as he's navigating through these boxes and towels and books, this hotel, which is owned by this delightful ghost boy that we've been talking to, Mr. Oshiro, it's kind of poorly maintained. We decided to help clean it up, and so the object of this section is to clear out all the boxes, towels, and books, and we're doing this in a rather efficient manner. We do have an option to go into any of the 3 rooms in the order that we choose. Most runners will choose the specific order that Loudur and Briguy are going, simply because like when you finish up with the room, the landing spot of the game will like put you closer to Oshiro to start the cutscene trigger that we inevitably skip. So yeah, it's kind of routed out for maximum efficiency, and all the runners are kind of used to like the layout of the levels, because the layout of these little sections will change depending on which sections you clear out first. Like if you a room section that Loudur's in and getting through rather nicely, if you hadn't cleared this out first, you would have boxes and towels to kind of cushion your fall, and they would be covering up like these little areas where you can see that there's nothing but dust bunnies. Alright, so Briguy cleaning up this mess rather efficiently. We see our friend Theo for a little bit. We skipped that cutscene, but we'll be getting to know him very well much later in the run. And Loudur is in the elevator shaft portion of this level, which, it's, again, more tight movement through these cycles. Ooh, barely misses the wall there, but yep. There's Loudur, and he's getting through it now, yeah. Going to be navigating this cycle very well, and then he's going to be going into this room with 4 hype dashes, which... Oh, barely misses the last one. Yeah, these are 4 very precise, very... You really have to be, like, on point with the way that you dash, because it's, like, not just about, like, you know, hitting the A and the B button at the same time. It's also about, like, controlling... It's all about, like, you know, controlling your hyper dash and, like, being able to land where you're going to land. So getting a second try, very impressive work. We'll see if Briguy goes for the same strat, because that is one of the faster strats for this game. And then loudur. So loudur is now in the Oshiro fight, so a lot of plot happens, and we have done something to... Well, not we, but technically we. Again, a lot of plot happens, and we have angered our good ghost boy, and now he's chasing after us. So, you know, again, still cycle-based, and we're still avoiding, like, all these dust bunnies moving in otherwise. And Oshiro now, he will pause a little bit before he attacks, and he'll fire off a lightning bolt, saying that he is going to move that direction horizontally across the screen, and we just have to, like, kind of avoid him. Now, again, if we're moving across the screen the same way every time, we know exactly where Oshiro is going to be, so it's not easy to avoid him, as we just saw from loudur. And over on the hyper dash room, yeah, so Briguy taking it a little bit slow, but again, gets through that room rather nicely. You know, we'll see a lot of runners bring a multitude of strats to this game. Like, there's no real, like, especially, like, there's no real, like, actual, like, agreed upon fastest way to, like, get through the game. Like, you're kind of adding your own strats and your own style to this game as you see fit, and you're just kind of adopting newer stuff as you develop in this game. So, yeah, it's really cool to see, like, the different strats and philosophy that runners will bring to this game. And it looks like the exclamation R command might be down a little bit, but I would highly recommend going to your URL tab and just typing in twitch.tv/loudur14 Briguy77 if those are their Twitch names, and just, like, you know, giving them a follow, because it's really interesting to see these people work. Alright, so loudur getting started on Golden Ridge. So Golden Ridge, I think Chapter 3 kind of gets a rap as one of the worst levels in the game, and I think that's true for a newer player, but, like, once you start to get experience, you start to learn that Golden Ridge is also rather annoying, because Golden Ridge is kind of really precise tricks that they save, like, you know, 2-3 seconds a piece, but failing them costs you 6-7 seconds a piece. And in a short run like this, where, you know, loudur can complete in under 40 minutes, it's a sub 45 for Briguy, every second is going to count, especially, like, seconds that would be free if you're going for kind of a safer strat. Alright, Briguy in the last room of Oshiro. So one thing that these, like, this isn't necessarily a boss fight, but these, like, boss fight like segments have in common is that, like, a lot of them take place in the longer rooms in the game. So if you die on that screen, and you have to get sent all the way back to the beginning, that's one of the more costly deaths. Like, it's not quick at all. Like, that can cost you, like, 10-12 seconds dying at the end of the screen, but Briguy makes it through, and he will be joining loudur over in Chapter 4. Yeah, and that's from loudur kind of epitomizes everything that's kind of annoying about Golden Ridge, because this hyper dash that he went for, like, that's definitely a time saver, but again, failing it, but again, it's very precise to get that, like, extended hyper dash off of that very narrow block, and failing it kind of cost me a few seconds, but again, you saw him going right back for that same strat, nailing it on the second try. So yeah, it's also something where, like, deaths are going to happen in this game. Like, obviously, this is a precision platformer, you're going to die. This is a game that told you before Chapter 4 to be proud of your death count. So it's not just about, like, your ability to make these jumps, it's about your ability to recover from the jumps that you're not able to make, and your ability to bounce back from your mistakes that kind of separate a good runner from a great runner in this speed game. loudur getting started in the harsh wind section of Golden Ridge, where basically, like, we've had this wind mechanic all throughout Golden Ridge, and now the winds are so harsh that the only way to really efficiently move through these screens, the only way to move at all through these screens, is by dashing. And adding into that are these snowballs that come flying in for some reason. I don't know where these snowballs come from. I don't know what the reason for the snowballs is. They just come in from somewhere. They come in without warning. They track your vertical position at some point, kind of like Oshiro did, and you just have to leap through those two screens and just kind of trust that your movements are going to help you avoid the snowballs. Meanwhile, Briguy is coming up on one of the auto scrollers, and auto scrollers in this game, they're about like 4-5 seconds. They're nowhere near as bad as like auto scrolls in like other games, but still 4 or 5 seconds in this game, especially when it's like action packed and fast paced as this, that feels like forever riding that auto scroller. So yeah, makes it through nicely, makes it through this next room rather well, and yeah. Alright, so loudur is now starting on Mirror Temple. Mirror Temple is one of the cooler chapters in this run. It's kind of divided into two parts. You have this first part, which is like a lot of like really cool movement, kind of like the Awake section in Chapter 2, where you're just kind of try and get through the screens as efficiently as possible. And there's a couple of really cool skips, like this one that we'll hopefully see on the second try from loudur. Yep, gets that wave dash in that room, and that saves him a few screen transitions. Like, even failing to get that trick the first try, it's still faster to go for that little wave dash that he just tried. Alright, meanwhile, Briguy in this second auto-scroller room, riding that block, and now, yeah, he's making it through Golden Ridge in rather good time, and yeah, he should be starting off the cliff face section in short order. Oh, yep, should be starting off cliff face, the harsh wind section, in short order. Yep. Meanwhile, loudur. So this is another dev intended skip. You're supposed to find a key to unlock that door that you screen, but there's this little skip that's designed that the developers put in there so that you just ride those bubbles and you sneak over the top of the level. So hey, if you're looking for some of the collectibles in the game, I would recommend finding a key and just taking that shortcut anyway. See what happens. Anyway, loudur. He is about the unraveling section where we're going to be introduced to Seekers, as we're about to see in this nifty little dream sequence. So, Seekers can kind of feel like RNG on a first playthrough, but they're actually AI, and Seekers are kind of programmed to track where you are and basically, true to their name, seek you out. And like everything else in this game, they're one-hit KO, as the game just taught you, and the game also taught you that they can break through red walls and they get stopped by the little rain walls. So after we skip a bunch of cutscenes and go through another couple rooms, we're going to be seeing the Seeker section from loudur, and we'll see some of the strats that they're employing to kind of use Seekers in interesting ways. Meanwhile, Briguy on the third to last screen of Golden Ridge. Yep, making it through nicely. And then we get one. Ooh. Yeah, so we get harsh wind in the other direction, so the momentum from the harsh wind kind of carries us even further than we can go. Gets a swag berry. Always love a swag berry. And yep, he gets through that section, and he's out of Golden Ridge, and he'll be joining loudur in Mirror Temple. And loudur isn't part of the Mirror Temple. We're just trying to not just avoid those Seekers, but kind of use them to great effect. Like you saw on that screen there, that the Seeker activated one of those coins that allow that little eye door to open. So yeah, so Seekers can activate blocks, so we try to use the Seekers to activate those blocks to kind of maximize efficiency moving through these screens. Oh, has to improv a little bit, and that's one of the things that the Seeker section will make you do, is kind of like adjust your strats, because the Seekers, we can generally predict how they're going to move, but we can't guarantee how they're going to move. So yeah, this is kind of one of the more sections to like, this is one of the more fun sections to watch, simply because like, I'm trying to think of the word. Yeah, simply because like it's one of the places where you can see like a different scope of the murder. Like it's not just about your ability to execute in unraveling and in the rescue section that we're coming up on. It's about your ability to adjust to what the game gives you. So yeah, it's one of the cooler sections to like see done efficiently. It's also one of the cooler sections to see when things go slightly awry. Alright, so Briguy here, coming up on the... Yep, coming up on that dev intended skip, and meanwhile loudur is in the Theo crystal section. So basically our friend Theo, who we kind of encountered in chapter 2, he's stuck in this crystal, and we have to escort him to the end of the level. And this is unlike anything else in the run, because now in addition to dashing, we have to, we have this escort mission. And so while we're holding Theo, we lose our ability to dash. So we progress through these screens quickly by throwing Theo, then dashing, and catching Theo in midair. And when we catch Theo in midair, we retain our momentum. So even though we can't dash, we still get dash momentum carrying Theo. Kind of give the Seeker a little pop there. Yeah, so now you're not only adjusting to like what the Seekers are giving you. Oh, nice! Yeah, that was a close one for loudur in that screen, but manages to land on top of the Seeker. Now he's in the last screen, which is another one of those screens where, it's a long screen. The further you traverse in the level, the costlier your death becomes, but not a problem at all. And now we're about to throw our crystal friend at the eyeball, which will make a lot more sense if you play this game and have experience plot for yourself. And Briguy is about to meet the Seekers for himself. Yeah, so on that screen right there, Briguy kind of went for the strat where the Seeker is supposed to hit that key coin and help you unlock the door, but the Seeker moved in the way that the Seeker wanted to move in that section, so couldn't quite get it. And now we're going to wait for the explosion, which will also activate that switch. Alright, meanwhile, loudur going for one of the more notable skips in this run, which is Lake Skip. Lake Skip is this very precise bounce, wall bounce off the bottom of these spikes. Having a little bit of, there we go, gets it. And getting that first try represents like a 4-second save over going through that screen the way that you're intended to go through it. Yeah, getting it like after a few tries, that's more just like, going for the strats you're comfortable with. Like, that's kind of like a never say die thing. Like, yep, I know how to do this. I'm going to get it eventually. It's worth it to practice this trick for me. So, yeah, well done for loudur for sticking with his guns. And now he's kind of moving through the first half of the chapter 6, which is called Reflection. And Reflection is also kind of divided into two parts. So this first part is, it's kind of like weird jungle with a ton of spikes everywhere. And, there's, it's like a lot of the other levels in this game, like a ton of like really cool skips, a ton of like really interesting movement sections, and a ton of interesting mechanics, like these crush blocks here, which, like you saw there, kind of like knocked that block down for us. And yeah, so we can jump off these crush blocks. I'll stop talking about loudur for a second here, yeah, so we can jump off these crush blocks and retain the momentum that they're giving us, because crush blocks can move faster than we can. So yeah, you kind of saw, and that's the way that you're supposed to get through that screen, just like using momentum from the block to just get through the rest of the screen. Yeah, meanwhile, so much happening on both screens that like Briguy is out of the search section by doing this like really nifty skip. Basically, you just hyperdash over a ton of spikes, and you're able to skip about like a minute of the run, but yeah, now he'll be getting into his own crystal section, so we'll be seeing how he handles this as loudur handles his Reflection chapter. Yeah, so another thing that like makes chapter 6 distinct from other chapters are these feather sections that we're going through. And basically the feather, we get like full 360-degree movements as opposed to Madeline, who only gets 8 ways of movement, like up, down, left, right, diagonal. And feathers can be kind of tricky to navigate, especially if you're using a D-pad. It looks like loudur is kind of navigating through these sections with relative ease, and yeah, Briguy still dealing with the Seeker unpredictability rather well. Like that Seeker was just trying to like block that exit, but he was patient. He knew when he needed to go for the door, and he's out of that screen. Meanwhile, Loudur is going to be going for another depth design skip where you can kind of see in this section that there's a ton of spikes and a ton of bumper that we're used to navigate to get around all those spikes. But the devs have carved out this little notch in the level for us to kind of like just dip through and kind of take a shortcut through the section. But it's a very precise movement, and we kind of saw Loudur as he went for it the first time. He kind of knocked into the top of the spikes, and there we go. He's taking that checkpoint up there, so landing on that platform gave him a checkpoint so that if he hadn't failed to move through that section the way that you need to move through that section to get through, you at least like get to go back, and it's like not as punishing to die in that spot. Meanwhile, Briguy gets through the last couple screens of Mirror Temple with relative ease, and he is coming to Chapter 6, so yeah, still a relatively close race. Like you can kind of see on the in-game timer that Loudur is about 4:26 into Reflection, so there's still a lot of game yet to be played, but yeah, 4:26 at this point. Well, Briguy's going to have to turn it on a little bit, or Loudur is going to have to kind of start going for, maybe start failing some riskier stuff, but again, this should still be a fun race to watch, because we have like, you know, these two divergent philosophies and like how to play this game colliding, so yeah, still very fun. Meanwhile, Loudur is starting the Battle Line fight with one of the more notable tracks in the game. So, Battle Line, I would like to say, oh, okay, kind of delaying getting the jump there and kind of fell victim to the block, which I haven't seen one of these races. But yeah, he's getting through. Alright, sorry about that. Loudur, the main strat for the Battle Line fight is don't die. Like, these are some of the longest screens of the game, and not only that, but every time you hit Battle Line, there's this like little 2-second cutscene that plays where you kind of get knocked back. So we definitely don't want to take a death in any of these screens. But another little bit of speed tech that we're going to be trying to utilize is we're trying to get to the ground as quickly as possible, because all the like, you know, speed things that we do, like all the wave dashes and all the dash jumps, that involves us interacting with the ground. So the faster that we can get back to the ground, the faster we can continue chaining, you know, like rapid movement. So, but yeah, especially on a screen like this where you're kind of designed to just be in the air, there's not a ton of optimization you can do aside from just not taking a simple death. Alright, so Loudur, I believe, is in the last screen of the non-remix portion of the fight, and Briguy is making good pace through Reflection. Yeah, another thing about Reflection is that, like, the first half of the level, we do get these diverging paths, but it's been pretty faster and what's not faster to kind of get through. So Briguy is taking the route that, like, you'll see a lot of runners take through these paths, but, you know, there are some screens that some runners find easier, so sometimes you'll see other paths, but yeah, Briguy even going down. Technically, I think the task will go to the top in that little divergent path just because it's slightly faster for a task, but you have to like move through that section very efficiently to make it worth your while. So Briguy making the wise choice and yeah, gets through that second try, and yeah, meanwhile Loudur making great time to this Reflection so far. Alright, he should be through the second to last screen here in relatively short order. Alright, now in the very last screen of the fight, and again, like, you can definitely see, like, the feather kind of moving slowly, kind of, like, moves slower than Madeline's normal movement, so, yeah, definitely this screen would have been pretty costly, but gets through, ends the Battleline fight, and now we get the double dash. So yeah, second to last chapter of the game, and we now have the ability to do 2 dashes through the middle of the air. So the last level that we're about to take on, Summit, will be employing this newfound double dash ability to pretty great effect. So we'll be seeing that very shortly as Briguy going through this little water segment. This level, I hear, was originally intended to be solely a water level, but luckily they kind of constrained the water level portion of this to just that one screen, which is, I'd be interested in playing this water level, but I don't think the water level would be especially fun to speedrun. So yeah, Briguy's through, and he's going to be starting the battle line boss fight. And loudur is in the Summit. So basically, Chapter 7, the Summit, it's the longest chapter in the game. Like, it's gonna be about a third of the run, so because like it's taking us through like all the parts of the mountain that we've just been through, except now we're going through them with our ability to double dash. So especially this screen, you'll see a lot of gaps that we have to clear. Like, it's like basically, like I heard someone describe it as a lot of spikes and a lot of sky, and that's kind of like a fun little way to describe it. Yeah, it gets through the first remix portion of the Summit, the Reflection remix, pretty nicely, and he'll be starting on the Forsaken City remix as Briguy is moving pretty quickly through the battle line fight. So yeah, loudur making pretty solid time through the first part of the Summit. It did that screen quite nicely, and there's, yeah, we'll see what he sets up for here. Yep, so there's a nice little wall bounce that you can do to kind of like skip that cycle, because if you don't hit that wall bounce, what you have to do is wait for that zipper platform to kind of descend all the way down, and then wait another little couple seconds for it to bounce back up. So getting that wall bounce saved a few seconds there, and that's really cool to see loudur get it, as he's now in another really cool part of the run, which is the return of the dream blocks. So we barely saw the dream blocks in chapter 2, and we're barely going to see them here. They're very short-lived, a disappointingly low percentage of the run, but again, this is like one of the cooler sections to see, to watch, and it's also like one of the most satisfying to pull off, because like you're just hitting these buttons, you're feeling really good because you're going through these like delightful squishy blocks. It's really cool to like nail these like dream block sections pretty efficiently, as loudur seems to be doing. Like, this is easily the most fun. Like, I find this personally to be the most fun section to practice, and because like it's so fast paced, it's so action packed, but it's already pretty much over for loudur. He's going to be moving on to the return of the Dust Bunny remix. Meanwhile, Briguy is in the last third of the battle line fight. Oh, barely misses that platform. So yeah, another thing. So line fight, we now get introduced to platforms that kind of rise and fall. Battle line apparently has telekinetic powers that doesn't get explained in the plot of the game, but still, it's something that we have to deal with. And yeah, in the strategy after that room, it can be kind of tough to deal with those rising platforms, because you may not be sure of like what momentum you're gonna get when you land, or if you're trying to like dash through them, you might miss timing dash a little bit and kind of like end up maybe not where you wanted to be. But Briguy just well, he's in pretty good position to clear out this battle line fight, as loudur over in 1500 has cleared probably 2 of the hardest screens of the game, considering like both length and position in the run. Like, yeah, 1500 hasn't been known to kill a lot of runs, because like there's a couple of really long screens that are very difficult to get through quickly, but loudur seems to be doing okay through this. I just need to avoid this very... Yep. Clears that last section, and he is on to the golden... Meanwhile, Briguy has his double dash. He will be joining loudur on the Summit in relatively short order. Yeah, so 2,000 meters is very similar to like the original Golden Ridge. Like, there's a lot of like annoyingly precise tricks that you have to nail, and there's like a lot of like weird things that you kind of have to deal with from time to time. Yeah, like that auto-scroller skip kind of epitomizes like both Ridge and 2000. Like, it's very difficult to pull off. You have to be very precise with your movement, and like, you know, if he had failed that trick, that would have been like, you know, a several second time loss, but he nails it first try, which is very impressive. That's a very difficult skip to nail. Yeah, now he's moving through the rest of this chapter with, again, relative ease. Alright, meanwhile, Briguy getting through the last part of 0 meter, so the section that they're both in, where they're kind of catching battle, where they're kind of throwing themselves at battle line throwing them up. So you can kind of see that battle line, when she throws you up with this tremendous arc. But what loudur was doing on that last screen for him, he was dashing as soon as battle line threw him in some spots, and that canceled that like little floaty animation so that he could like continue progressing through the screen quicker, and that saved like a few seconds on the screen. But again, this is a game where every second counts, including a potential second that we could see saved with one weird trick in 2500 meters, which loudur should be coming up on. Ooh, and that's yeah, Briguy taking a death at that spike. Like, again, we're trying to move through the screen as fast as possible, but sometimes that involves very precise tricks, and, you know, even something that seems like relatively simple as 500 meters, that can still be very difficult to pull off. Like, oh, that's an interesting setup for that wall bounce. I don't think I've quite seen that before, but yeah, Briguy makes it through. That's another example of like a runner bringing their, you know, style and their individuality to this run that, you know, this game will never stop surprising you if you watch it. Like, even if you watch a ton of these races, there's going to be something you'll see a runner do that you may not have seen before, and that's really cool to see. Meanwhile, loudur going for it. Oh! Barely misses the door skip, going for it again. Doesn't know any other way to get through the screen. Alright, so he's through the first one again. Second one's the hardest one. Oh, man. Again, sticking to his guns, needs to save that single second. And yep, there he goes. Makes it through on the 4th try, but hey. You kind of have, like, I mean, you don't have to go for door skip in a race, but it's very cool to see someone, like, you know, sticking to their guns, giving the people what they want. And, you know, that does save time. And, you know, if you nail that first try, that does save time over going through that room the intentional way. Time you can lose time to a meme, it's worth it in my opinion. But yep, loudur is through 2500 meter, and after going through all the remix chapters that we've just encountered, he is on to a piece of semi-original content, which is 3000 meters. This is the summit of the summit, if you will. So yeah, this is like another one of the coolest sections of the game, because like you're just constantly going up, and it's some of the more satisfying stuff to pull off. So yeah, we'll see, like, so there was that one skip that he just did there where he like wall bounces off of this hidden block, and now he's getting through this downdraft section. So yeah, this portion of the level, oh, he didn't get to checkpoint 27 quite in time. That's unfortunate, but yep, hit that checkpoint again. So yeah, downdraft section, basically we have this like heavy wind forcing us down rather than forcing us left or right. So basically, like, now our movement has to be like incredibly precise, incredibly tight. Like, if you've ever, like, you know, watched someone like stream this game and just like, and they had a mic and you've heard like their controller just like going like constantly click 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 during the section, it's like really satisfying to controller while you're seeing the section done like well. So yeah, it's like one of the more satisfying sections of the run, and loudur, you know, a couple of difficulties here and there, but you know, that's kind of to be expected. Like, the summit has a way of kind of like playing with your nerves. Like I said, this is as much a mental game as it is anything else, the speedrun. So yeah, loudur, he's able to recover from his mistakes, and he is onto the updraft section, which is the opposite of the downdraft section. It's very floaty. Yeah, I think he thought he could save that, but no, he just like floated way to the left, and yeah. Alright, meanwhile, Briguy is out of 1500 meter. So yeah, very solid work. Getting out through the first 4 seconds of Summit in sub 5. That's, I mean, for me, that's impressive at least. Yeah. Briguy is doing very well in these last couple sections here. Alright, meanwhile, loudur making it through 2 of the longer screens in the game, I want to say, in the updraft section. Like, dying on checkpoints 14 or 13, I believe they are. Those can be rough, because then you just have to make these, like, you know, precise wall jumps and precise, like, little bounces over and over again. But he's through on one of the last sections of the updraft section. A little bit of trouble with this one. Yeah, this is, again, like, no matter how many times you play this game, Summit is still just straight up hard. So a death here and there on the Summit, like, that's not really that surprising. Like, even at the level that loudur and Briguy are both on, like, it's just, yeah, again, like, it's just very tough, and you're at the end of the run and you're in a race environment. I don't know if either of these runners have the restream up at all, but if you know where you are in relation to your opponent, that can also be kind of screwing with you. Just like saying, okay, this is like a little bit close, I kind of had to deliver on this part, but yeah. loudur recovering pretty well. Getting to flag 3. Yep. Meanwhile, Briguy, and again we can see him utilizing that dash to cancel an animation and get to the screen as fast as he can. Very nice. Should be very nicely done. Again, like, the screen, it's something that you're experiencing a lot, but something that, like, never gets quite easy. But he's through. He's on to 2,500 meters as loudur is getting to the top of the mountain. Alright, avoids all the spikes on flag 1, and he is through. He is going to finish up with a time of 38 minutes 22 seconds. GG to loudur. Alright, so as loudur basks in the glory of a job well done, Briguy is going to be finishing out his run for us, which, you know, is definitely still cool to see. Yep. And Briguy going for door skip. Heck yeah. Oh, sounds like he failed on the second door. Yep, and going for the vaunted door skip. Again, very solid, very respectable choice. Again, you're not, like, obligated to go for door skip. It's honestly, it's kind of recommended that you don't. Like, it only saves 1 second. Like, I kind of go back and forth on whether or not door skip is worth it, but yeah, just got to get through the game the best way that you know how. And Briguy is going to be going to the summit in relatively short order, assuming that we don't have an unfortunate death or cutscene or retry here. Yeah, Briguy waiting for the dialogue box to show up to confirm that he is in the cutscene. Yeah, it's a weird little oversight in the game where, like, the cutscene will be the retry button. So if he had hit that button a little bit early, he would have gone all the way back to that very long screen. So yeah, good to take the, like, little extra safety measure. And now he's starting on his own downdraft section. As a break, 24, and, you know, evidently he didn't need it. It's through those 2 very long sections with pretty well, and, you know, he's dead right there. But again, he got checkpoint 23, so just gets back up and gets right back to what he needs to do, which is get to flight 22, or 21. Hard to discern what flags are sometimes. Alright, so Briguy. Oh, alright, managed to recover. Didn't quite get the height that he needed there to get to that little battle line ore, but he was able to grab the wall just in time, and he is beginning his updraft section. And opts to grab flag 18 there. Again, it's really interesting to like, see what strats and like, what strats like every single runner is comfortable with. Like, skipping flag 24 but grabbing flag 18. It's not really a combo that I've seen a lot from some of these runners, but again, you're comfortable like skipping what you need and grabbing what you need. So yeah, again, really just a really fascinating like race to watch and just like think about the way that both these runners approach this game. Like, yeah, they both show me a lot. All right, the Briguy making good work, doing good work on this updraft section here. Oh, and just barely clips that corner coming up on the top, and yeah, this. Yeah, again, I don't know if the runner has the restream up or if either of them are looking at the SRTV room, but you may be thinking at this point like his opponent is done, and now he's the only person like on the stream that can kind of be like, okay, I just need to get through the rest of this run as quickly as possible, and just kind of like maybe freshen things up. But he's doing great. Yeah, he should be approaching the end pretty quickly here. He's on the last 5 flags, and these can occasionally be some of the harder flags in the game. But yeah, as we just saw with that, and that's a jumper like you can suddenly lose your rhythm on that jump for like what can feel like no reason, and it may take you a couple of attempts to like get back on that rhythm. But yeah, he was able to like figure out like, okay, this is the jump I need to make, this is where I need to position Madeline, and he makes it through he's on flag 3. Alright, yeah, solid recovery there, knowing that the dash crystal will respawn after you use it, and yeah, now he's on flag 1, the music's gonna fade out. Alright, and he has made it to the end of the game. Well done, GG to Briguy, finishing up with a time of 44:51. Get GG's in the chat for both these runners. They put on a very good show for us today. All right, so we are now joined by Briguy77. How are you feeling, Briguy?
I'm feeling all right. It was okay. A really strong start, I thought. But it fell apart, no Shiro. Then the next few worlds weren't great. 4 especially was pretty bad. Pulled it back at the end, but not that much. But I think I put up a decent run. I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was definitely solid work all throughout. Like, sorry to hear that the mid game didn't go well for you, but that's kind of Celeste. Like, you nail one thing well, and then the next thing doesn't go quite so well.
About having it be like just room by room, right? Like you can just have some great ones, and then next room just goes really bad.
Yeah, exactly. Like it kind of on the summit where like it kind of took you a couple tries to get through flag 4, I think it was, but then like the next few flags, like you got through pretty decently.
Exactly.
All right, so I didn't quite manage to catch your record. I know I commentated a race for you yesterday, but is this so? Do you have any races left in this tournament?
One more in like 2 hours, but I think this one did me in. I'm pretty sure I can't make brackets, but that's all right. Participating.
Yeah, no, and that's solid. You know, like there's only so many people that can make the brackets, and you know, as long as you motivate yourself to do your best, that's really the best that you can do. You know.
Definitely.
All right, so do you have any final thoughts on this race or anything else that you'd want to share?
Yeah, no, I think that was it. Yeah, thank you for commentating. Yeah, looking forward to the next one.
All right, yeah, no problem. Yeah, and so yeah, we will close up shop for this one. So looks like we have another race coming up at 3, coming up on Speed Gaming 1. That's going to be Faciter versus Sef Compacto. And then 5 o'clock, we're going to have a 4-way on Speed Gaming 2 between Ruby Jack, Dragon, and Gix and Galaxy and Melee. And another race at 5 o'clock, Terra 21, Gabby Rosen. Then your race with Gamma Function is going to be on Speed Gaming 2 at 6 o'clock. So yeah, it's going to be Celeste on the Speed Gaming channels all throughout the day. So make sure to follow Speed Gaming 2 through 6, and you know, give the runners a follow if you like what you saw. And yeah, that's going to be it for this race. I think I'm going to be seeing y'all on Speed Gaming 1.